Let's see here. Hi, Connie.
Hi there.
We'll give everyone a couple minutes to pour in here. Yeah. Standing. Hi, everyone. Jackie, Annika, what up? What up? Hi, Mary. Hmm. So I guess, excuse me, I guess Damien and I are presenting at the same time. So we're going to have to fight to get everyone's attention. But we'll give everyone another minute or two. Going in. Still trying to figure out how to use PowerPoint. This is exciting. Mary, my manager, is actually in the chat, so she'd be rather impressed with my work here. For you guys that are in the chat already, for anyone that doesn't know me, I love when people are most interactive. So feel free to chime in if you have your 2 cents. Otherwise, I have a tendency to ramble. I love speaking. It's something I've done for quite a while now. But if you guys have questions or anything, just raise your hand, come off of mute. And if there's stories that you'd like to share as well, please, I encourage you to do that. I think sometimes with these events, it's not always just about the speakers. Sometimes we learn a lot from our audience too, which is really exciting because we all have a story that is personal to us. So maybe my story will not resonate, but maybe someone else's will. So we'll give everyone another 30 seconds and then we're going to get kicked off. What's everyone think of the summit so far? Have you been in other sessions, or is this your first session, or is there anything that you think is sticking out amongst the rest? Is there a session that you guys liked more than the others? Bueller, don't all jump at the same time.
I'm enjoying it.
There's a chat. Okay, I didn't realize I had access to this chat. Let's see here. So I could join you for this one. I've been in every session, so much variety. Yeah, there really is. You're seeing a lot across the board, which is really exciting. So, in the interest of all of our time, we'll get kicked off. So anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Anthony. A lot of people know me as Tony or Ant or self-care dude. But whatever you decide to call me is totally cool. I wear a lot of different hats, and I think we can all relate to that because life takes us in a lot of different directions. But I think my favorite hat of them all is definitely public speaking and being able to have time to connect with people one-on-one through these sessions, whether it be through content or these events. And I love that. So I also have a long history in customer service and hospitality. So if you guys have any questions at the end, we'll take a minute or two for questions. But I have my hands in kind of everything, whether it be marketing, hospitality, customer service, sales, big box retail. I spent a lot of time with teams for five-star hotels, working on coaching processes and a variety of things that is just so much fun. But I do love creating content above the rest because at a time where there's so much changing in the world, there's so many reasons to be connected now more than ever. And I feel like at times, and I don't know if you guys can agree, but I feel like at times we might be a little bit too connected, where it's like some of these things are lost on us and we get so in the groove of just going about our business and our day to day. And we all have, we start our day and we go down this checklist of things that we have to do. We all have those things we have to do. We have our parents, we have our kids, we have work, we have school, we have grocery shopping, which I always seem to forget for some reason. So, but we all have these things that we have to do. And sometimes the things that we enjoy doing or, that give us some sense of purpose take the back seat. And I love that the most about speaking because it gives me a chance to inspire other people through some of these conversations that are a little taboo. And I think one of my favorite topics to talk about is being uncomfortable with our lives. And we all know that growing can be a very painful process, no matter where you are in your journey. Growing is a painful process. It can be confusing. There's a lot of emotions associated with what we're going through. Some of us are going through some really heavy stuff. And I think it goes without saying that it's not a comfortable process. And so I landed on this topic and I was kind of sitting here a few weeks back, kind of trying to figure out where to go with this box. It's in my way. But I was trying to figure out really how I wanted that message to come across. So I think for me, a lot of it has to do with having skin in the game. And go back to who I am, not only am I a director of hospitality or self-care dude or a brother, a son, I'm a creator of my life. And I think, you have to be able to do the uncomfortable stuff. And that means having skin in the game. Far too often I hear people complaining or upset that they didn't get what they want. And I don't know that we have, we give ourselves a fair evaluation of who we are, and at times that can be paralyzing because, you want to be able to treat yourself with the utmost compassion, especially when you're going through things and growing as a person, because it is confusing. It comes with the territory and it's overwhelming at times. So I think having skin in the game is one of the biggest parts about growing, meaning you have to do the work. You can't disregard the work of trying and trying and trying. And I love that most about my own story is that I've developed this muscle of always showing up and embracing the new and, embracing that uncharted territory. So I love creating these things. I love giving people a platform to feel inspired and forge the path ahead for themselves. So here's just some of the topics I think we could cover. A little fun fact, I put this PowerPoint together 5 minutes before this. So again, not a big PowerPoint guy, but I was like, you know what? I heard a couple people mention how they were visual learners earlier, and so I thought I'd throw something up here on the screen and just kind of cover some of the things that I think are most important. And one of those is just seeking discomfort. Seeking discomfort can mean a plethora of things to everybody. And, because if you're not willing to be uncomfortable, it's kind of hard to forge that path ahead. And a lot of people say, well, where do I start? What do I do? How do I know I'm doing it right? And far too often we're looking for answers. We're looking for some level of validation into what we're doing is the right thing to be doing. And I think it comes back to the relationship you have with yourself is the most important one to have. So what I mean is, by getting your reps in and having that skin in the game, by showing up every day and doing the things that are new and uncomfortable is really how you build that platform and that sense of self. When you're able to build that sense of self and you can see yourself in a light that is, I'm capable and I can do this and these things are possible, that's a huge deal. And I think sometimes we forget that the glory is in the attempt of what we're doing. We don't always see, sometimes we get so steadfast on the result. We get to, it's the same as, me sitting here speaking. It's like, okay, we had a great event. We spoke about it and it went really well. But what about that like love that went into creating an agenda, or the love that goes into promoting these events, or the creative process associated with it? And I think a lot of that just gets back to, you have to be willing to do those things and walk kind of naivete in a way, walk into these new parts of our life instead of getting what we know mostly as paralysis by analysis. We've all been there. We get into the thought process of thinking about it, and it makes it very hard to act decisively. And I think that's something that I enjoy the most about, getting your reps in and trying to embrace the new, is because as you fail and as you learn and as you grow, you're going to learn more and more about yourself. And you're going to learn there's certain things that work for you, certain things that don't work for you. And I always like to bring up, I love doing what I do because I've spent so much time failing at it. And I've basically failed my way to success. And I think that's something that I really want to, teach other people how to do and educate them on that, especially in a time with where we are right now with social media and history. We all know history. If you don't learn from it, it's bound to repeat itself. And we want to be able to educate people on how to, even though some of these topics may come off as taboo at times, protecting your mental health and all the things related to that. And by growing as a person, when we can learn how to, be more flexible when things happen, and be more flexible with uncertain times, because I can tell you one thing that none of us can avoid. It's pain and uncertainty. None of us can avoid it. I'm sure you could throw taxes in there too. Everybody gets us on the taxes, but pain and uncertainty are two things that none of us can avoid. So being able to manage the emotions that are associated with difficult times and challenging times is so critical to your growth. But by failing forward and failing quickly, I've learned that you can basically do anything that you put your mind to, whether you're trying to write a book, which was actually something I did this year that I thought from the get-go, I would never be able to do this. I thought, how am I going to write a book? This seems crazy. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. I think I'm a little crazy too. So I think I can do this. And that just goes to show, if you get into it and you're decisive with the energy that you have, you can do something really productive. And it's funny because over the last year, the things that I've been the most resistant to have turned out to be the most profoundly rewarding parts of my life. Writing a book was just one of those things that we're hoping to publish next year. We're not going to get to it this year, but writing that book was such an experience, because it was one of those things where, everyone says, well, how are you going to do that? You can't do that. Or how are you going to start this? And that goes for basically anything new in our lives. People are going to look at you like maybe you're a little out of your mental when you're talking about some of these things. But if you're passionate enough about it and you can, you can forge that path ahead, um, these things over time become clearer. And lately I can't get it out of my head, but lately, I've been seeing a lot of people that it sucks because we don't know what to do at times, and it can be confusing, and we're paralyzed by indecisiveness, or we have a level of doubt that prevents us from taking that step forward. So going from point A to point B, from where I think I can do it but I'm really not sure, is such a giant leap. And that's why you see it all over the place. Take the leap, take the risk, and jump just head first. And over time, if it's something that you're really passionate about, I think it's important you give it at least 6 months to a year before you can decide this didn't work. Because there's been times, even in my life, where I'm like, did I give it enough time? Did I really do what I needed to do? Even though you put yourself out there and you're like, I checked all the boxes, I did what I thought made sense. But something's not translating, something's not coming across right. And you have to audit yourself and think of, that time now where it's like, okay, like, did I fail? No. There's only blessings and lessons in life, and you have to accept that, because there's no real failure. The only real failure comes when we don't do the things that are most passionate to us. Those things that give you a sense of purpose, a sense of self. And I know how debilitating it can be to make the leap and make those jumps into those the new and uncomfortable. And I see it a lot with myself more than anything, where it's like we spend so much time thinking about it that it's like, okay, like, now what do I do with this information? But not all of your ideas are going to start out whole. And I think that's the one message that I hope resonates with all of us. Has anyone started something and over time it started to make sense rather than off the bat? Like, how often does something make sense from the get-go? It usually doesn't. It usually doesn't make sense from the jump. And I can tell you for a million stories from starting, even with content. When I started making content a year ago, it's easy to look at the content and think, all right, how did you get here? This is the end result. You have all these followers, and I hear it frequently. You've made these leaps and bounds, and it's really amazing, but how'd you get here? And I think the one thing that I've mastered is just failing forward. I mastered doing the work, and not letting my, per se, failures that I think are failures in my head, but they're really not failures. They're moments of where you can look back and say, you know what, let's take some time for introspection, back to the drawing board. How do we move forward? And I think over the last 9 months, it's been such a rewarding process to think, my message that has changed drastically has taken on kind of a mind of its own. And it's been really rewarding to think how I've learned to embrace those uncomfortable parts of life, and acting so decisively to be able to say, you know what, it doesn't really make sense, but I'm gonna try it anyway, and I'm gonna get into what I think makes sense, down the line, because I fear ever becoming, I think, comfortable. I enjoy being comfortable. I think we can get into the habit where, in our heads, we're like, okay, we're making leaps and bounds, but at times it's like you have to make sure you're avoiding that level of comfortability, because if you get too comfortable with your day-to-day, which is so easy to do, you get up, you drive the same way to work, you drink the same coffee, you send the same text, you start your day out the same. Sometimes that can breed a level of complacency that could kind of take over. And before you know it, you're sitting there and you're stuck with your life and you're like, well, where do I go? And I think that's where some of these tips and tricks, of getting those reps in will help dramatically. And the way that you view your everyday life as an opportunity to always be growing and asking yourself the questions, where could I do better? What isn't working for me? And really breaking down the nitty gritty of where to go with your life, because sometimes we end up on autopilot. We'll call it what it is. We get so busy doing everything. And even just this last week, I love that Dr. Farron alluded to her calendar earlier, because I as soon as she started talking about her calendar, I thought every minute of my day is regimented in my calendar. And you get so stuck in following everything that you have to do, and you have to follow the calendar, and you have all these things that you have to do. And if you want to make, if you want to achieve your goals, it's going to be really important that you follow those things. But at the same token, how do you break up that mundane life? How do you step outside of yourself and separate, let's say, the thoughts from the thinker? And I got to say, I really love that, because it lets you see your own thoughts from a very neutral place. And it's not like, you have this one thought and immediately we reinforce it with, if you're doubtful, it's like, okay, here's why you're doubtful. And you start to reinforce it and reinforce it and reinforce it. Before you know it, you're like, oh my God, I'm anxious, I'm doubtful, I'm falling apart, I don't know what to do with myself. And it can be all consuming. But that's why it's so important, even in your day-to-day life, like, take time to say, what am I doing? Is this what I really enjoy doing? Is this what I'm passionate about? Am I doing this for the right reasons? Because if you can learn what you love to do, you can make a real difference in this world. You really can. And that took me a lot of years to learn, because I think sometimes we get tripped up with what other people think of us. We get consumed by what our family expects of us. We get, someone off mute? Who's in there? I heard somebody. But I think, guys, I have ADHD. Don't derail me. I'll completely lose my thoughts. But you guys are welcome to come off of mute too if you have anything you want to chime in on. But there's so many things that, it's plenty abundant when you're looking for reasons to not do certain things. And as humans, we will look for reasons to justify the means, no matter how ridiculous that sounds. If we don't want to do it, we're going to look for reasons not to do it. We'll find those reasons too, because they are plenty there. And I think that's why it's so important that, you find what gives you a sense of self and a sense of love for what you're doing. And that's so important in your everyday life, because your life isn't composed of all these unbelievably triumphant moments. You're not just always riding high. And it's easy sometimes to kind of come to that expectation that there's always got to be all this fun stuff going on, and all this, taking over and giving you all those good feel good endorphins, and releasing all that serotonin in the body that just makes you feel great. The love comes from breaking up the monotony of everyday life. And if you can come to terms with setting realistic but challenging goals for yourself, you will start to build an identity around who you are that is so unbelievable. And it'll give you that sense of assurance that you can't get from anywhere else. You can't get it from anywhere else. Because if you can assure yourself that you're on the straight and narrow and you're doing what's purposeful to you, no matter the feedback that you get, it'll be very difficult to derail what you're doing with your life. And again, it can be all consuming at times, because we are under the impression that there's certain things and certain boxes we have to check off, and we forget that it's about doing what you love. It's about the process itself. It's about the creativity of it all and the individuality. And I've learned so much that in the last year, it's easy to want to conform to what's happening around you. It is. There's no shortage of reasons to find your place in the pack, stick to it, and don't step out of line. But that's why you have to be willing to be uncomfortable, because somebody's got to run through the wall first. Somebody's got to do it first. And you have to be a trailblazer in that sense. You don't necessarily have to have these huge moments, but those little things that you do in your day to day, they will do more for you than you realize. And if you can manage to find a happy medium and balancing that, and I think that's what we're all doing here. We're all here because we're like-minded individuals, and we all bring a little pizzazz to the table in our own way. And that's something that's so rewarding, because we're all able to stick out in our own way. And I've always been resistant to change. And let's face it, people do not like change. Change is not fun. It's painful. It's uncertain. It's a lot. And if you learn to take tangible steps, things that you can touch, today I'm going to do this to change it up a little bit. You take those tangible steps to break up that feeling of uncertainty. You start to build confidence in the process that you have for yourself. And that is one of the most important parts of life, is being able to say, I need to grow. I have to let whatever this was behind me, I have to let it die now. And let's face it, none of us like things dying. We like to hold on to things as long as we can. And this isn't part of my presentation, but I believe they call that the sunk cost theory, where we hold on and we invest more and invest more, even when we know it is the odds are against us. And it's important, though, that you learn to fail forward, and you fail quickly. Because if you know the odds are against you, you have to be willing to cut your investment, cut your losses, and get back to the drawing board, but act decisively to the point where you know that this isn't working. You know that you want to go a different direction. You know that you have done all that you can, and you've stepped out of your zone. You've done what you could, but through time, whether it be 6 months, a year, 5 years, we're all on a different type of journey, and it's all very personal to us. But when you're going about your day to day and it feels confusing and you feel stuck, you have to find joy in the little things. It's all about finding joy in the little things. And sometimes that means laughing at the fact that you did your best and it wasn't enough. Or that means sharing a joke about a time when it wasn't very funny to share a joke about that certain situation. And you find joy in the fact that you're not all that you can be, but you're actively trying to be better. And by setting up those tangible goals and having steps that are, while achievable, they're still challenging to reach out and grab, you will start to build a sense of self that is really, really amazing. So, wow. How's everyone feeling? Anyone alive out there? I feel like I've just been talking. Just been talking. Let's see. We got some stuff going on in the chat here. Thanks so much for all this, Anthony. I'm going to step into Damien's for Jackie. We understand if Jackie's still in here. Jackie doesn't love us. She left. She went to Damien. But you're the best at being you. No one else. Great. Thank you, guys. Yeah. And the chat took over the screen. Yeah, I think if we can learn how to step outside of ourselves and learn that we always have room to improve, we just have to understand how painful that can be at times, to accept that, because we can get so stuck in our own heads with whether it be our own doubts or things that have held us back since childhood. A lot of people, psychologically, you build this identity for who you are between the ages of like 3 and 6, and then one day you're a whole adult. You're not even a kid anymore. You're like this adult with a family and jobs, and people need you to do things, and you don't even realize it, but it happens like rapid fire, and you have this sense of who you are, and it slips below our level of consciousness. It's not something we see actively. It's not something we're always paying attention to. We tend to be full of bias and a lot of things, but as you get older, you have to learn where, you have to let certain things about you die. And the only way that we can be better in our relationships in life is by working on the relationship that we have with ourselves. I heard a lot earlier about one cup pouring into another, and that couldn't be a truer statement. It's about building that sense of community and building that sense of self around, what, there are things in the past that hold us all back. And there's nothing more uncomfortable than confronting those things. There's nothing more painful than having to accept that some things in the past just didn't go our way. Just call it what you wish. And we have to be willing to let those things die, because the only way that life gets better is when you accept that certain things had to happen and certain things had to take place, no matter how painful. Because I've heard some stories that are just, my heart goes out to a lot of people, because there's people that have been through some traumatic stuff in this lifetime. But being willing to let those things die is it's almost a little cavalier, because it's like you're so rebellious, because you're letting the past not hold you back anymore. And when you start to realize that you're letting certain things about you go that have held you back for so many years, that path and self-discovery of who you are and taking that time for introspection, it levels the playing field. It levels the playing field to the point of, again, I'm not all that I can be, but I'm working to be better. And by accepting who we aren't anymore, you'll start to build this sense of self again now as an adult, that, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a little weird. It's going to be really weird. And you're going to have a totally different life. Nothing should be the same. Nothing should be the same when you put certain things about you to rest. And if you can build that muscle and get your reps in, where, you know what, it is scary. It is scary to talk about this stuff. I remember I was in therapy at the beginning of the year, and I was going through something really hard. And it was a lot of things. And I was in therapy 3 times a week, and it was so uncomfortable. It was a miserable experience. Nobody saw it. They just saw the result of what I was doing. And it was so uncomfortable, to the point, though, that I learned so much about myself that I'm not in therapy anymore. And I love that, because I learned so much, and I talked about the things that were scary as hell, the things that we want to avoid. And I had to learn how to forge that path forward, because it wasn't clear. It didn't matter who I got advice from. It didn't matter if it was my therapist, my mom, my brother, my sister. It did not matter. The advice would have otherwise been lost on me until I was ready to make that decision, where I could let things go and embrace the new, embrace the unknown. And I got real good at, failing at a lot of these things that I've never done before. So I'm sorry, Zephora, did I say that right? I see your hand raised. If you guys want to come off mute, go ahead.
My name is Zamora. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Oh, sorry, my computer. I just wanted to share, because I heard you saying like getting comfortable, with being uncomfortable. And I just remember a time period when I had gone through that. I mean, it was long, 15, 20 years of me being in this same cycle, knowing that it wasn't working. And so where I'm finding myself now, like I've gotten past that stage of, um, knowing this is not working, you have to do something different. So I've begun to do preparation work, and I actually began some action work behind it as well. But I find myself like being frustrated about what was, and not taking those action steps when I could have been so much further than I am now. Right. So as we talk about being uncomfortable, like being comfortable with uncomfortable, when that feeling comes up, um, I'm just struggling with that. And I don't know if you have any feedback about that, but I really struggle with knowing that I probably could have took a chance earlier on and not been in and been way past this place where I am now.
I thank you for sharing. I know it takes some serious courage to come off of mute on a Zoom event. Um, isn't it crazy how we sometimes have the tendency to see what we aren't doing rather than focusing on all that's already been done? Isn't that wild? I think that is so crazy. And I'm just as guilty. I'm like, it's so easy. That's why I say when there is no shortage of opportunities to find why we can't do something. Negativity is abundant. Our own, the greatest battle we'll have in life is the one that we have with ourselves. And you know, it's crazy because the when you look at it big picture, sometimes we can't see it because all we are seeing is the emotions of frustration and where we are right now. But think of where you've been over the last year. Think of where you've been over the last 5 years. I bet you've grown quite a bit, right? So I think when those feelings of frustration arise, try to not so much suppress them or forget them or ignore them because they'll only come back hitting twice as hard. But again, confront them and embrace them. Try to figure out where they're coming from. Try to digest them. And luckily, as humans, we have this ability to simplify things. It's kind of nauseating because we're so complex, but simplify it to the point where it's palatable for you. And you let the emotions run through you. And, you say, all right, today was a bad day. This week was a bad week. And then always come back to all that's been done. Come back to those goals that you have and where you're trying to get to with yourself, because you'll be in a way better place. But it will take getting those reps in over time, where it's like, okay, now when you think of what's frustrating you, it's like, I don't even have to think about that. That's like out of sight, out of mind. I know what I'm doing. I feel good about what I'm doing. I know who I am. And there's very little that can trip me up as a person other than myself. So hopefully that helps. I see we have another hand raised. Is that Corinne? Raised the hand.
It is.
Hi. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. I'll just share what I've learned in my journey. And that is I need to celebrate the progress, celebrate the accomplishments, celebrate those. And the thing that I have to get rid of is self-condemnation and judgment. Those are the things that bring me the victories.
Yeah, you have to. I think that goes right back to, I said it earlier today, there's so much synergy in the air. And I love that you brought that up, because there's not always all these like gigantic moments in our life taking place. And if you can learn to celebrate the road that's already, behind you, and learn to celebrate all that you've already done, and you make that your mentality and you make that who you are, when things do happen or things go awry, it's going to be very easy to deal with those things, because you're going to be so busy focused on all the things that have already worked out for you. And you're going to be so proud of yourself because you've already overcome the things that you never thought you'd be able to overcome. And it becomes a very rewarding process, because that becomes your mentality. And I think that'll take you places in life when you're able to, say, you know what, I've been through a lot and I have this image of myself, but I love that I've done all that I've done. And I love that my best days are probably ahead of me, because there's never going to be a perfect time to do things. There's never going to be a perfect set of circumstances in life. If you're waiting for them, stop waiting. You have to go create them. You have to go create the environment that you need, create the circumstances that will foster your ability to become more of who you are, rather than sitting and, pointing the finger and saying X, Y, and Z, this is why I can't do it. And celebrate those wins. I love that. I love that. Mary, I see you have your hand raised. What do you got?
Just, we always talk about or you always think about that you want to do the big things and you want to achieve such great goals and stuff, but it's so important every day that you just remember there's so many little things that you achieve throughout your day. Celebrate those small wins. They're just equally as important as those massive ones. Your small little wins actually add up and become those big things down the line. Even for myself, I've had to just really learn just to concentrate on some small things, because I can't do the big things yet, and just be so thankful for that, and just to not think about the things I haven't done today, but actually think the things I have done today and be grateful for those.
Yeah, that's great. And it goes without saying, excuse me. It goes without saying that things compound over time. Don't underestimate the power of little wins. Little wins will add up over time, and it will give you the stamina and the endurance to get through the big stuff. It'll give you that energy that you need to keep forging that path forward and capitalizing on those little wins, saying, you know what, it wasn't what I wanted it to be, but and those little wins, believe it or not, are sometimes in our opportunities, what we see as our failures. You know, it's like, hey, look, it didn't work out as planned. It didn't go the way I wanted it to. And you have to be willing to duck and move. Life doesn't slow down for any of us. So we have to be continuously curious and always pursuing more, and actively asking the questions and accepting that, you know, this is what it is. And whether you believe it or not, you are exactly where you need to be right now, no matter where you are right now. So don't let the pain of yesterday hold you back, because I know at times we get stuck in the feeling of, well, I could have done better. I could have fixed this. I could have shown up more. I could have, yeah, we could have all done a little bit better. But if you realize that now, you can start doing better now and going forward. But I can't even believe how fast that time went for us. I feel kind of cheated. Feel like we ran out of time, but I put up a couple of my events that we have coming up. And I love you guys for sharing your stories today. Is there anyone else that had any input on what we covered today, or any feedback, or anything that even I could do as a speaker to improve? I'm open to anything. I don't see any reason to not be. Lee, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and appreciate your sharing these thoughts today. So important for us to remember these things, and it is we want to jaunt from one place to another, and sometimes that happens, and often it doesn't. And when I'm coaching people, I talk to them about the lily pad. We're going to get from one lily pad to the next. Let's just get to the next one, and then we'll navigate how we'll get, because sometimes when you get there, you may reposition or change direction. It's not a straight line. I coach weight loss, and people just expect a straight line down, and that's not quite how it works. Unfortunately, or fortunately,
right.
maybe that's there as a safety mechanism, so we don't go crazy and just, you know, do silly things. But that it's lily pad to lily pad. Let's just get into position, because sometimes you get to the next place, it gives you time to recalculate and see what position you're in and where you want to go next. But I wanted to read you really quickly. I don't have anything super original. Everything comes from somewhere usually. So this is off my daily calendar, and it was for Thursday, October 19th, and I ripped it off and kept it on my desk. The little calendar is by Jan Sincero, and she wrote the book, You Are a Badass. And on this particular day, she said, decide to love yourself through all the trials and errors and false starts. End of quote.
I love that.
That's all I have.
Thank you for sharing, Lee. The path is not linear. It's not always straight ahead. It's not like that. Sometimes it's peaks and valleys, and we have to be willing to accept that there are certain blind spots that we have. No matter how aware we think we are, there is certain blind spots that get in our way. So it begs the question, you know, who are we? What are we doing? What are we trying to do? And I hope that for all of you, you're always willing to accept that there's always something to be learned. You know, and I love the lily pad analogy Lee just shared. It's funny. It reminds me of the one event I have up here on the screen, Improvise, Adapt, and Overcome, which was originally originated from the Marines. Sometimes it's just a matter of putting that one foot in front of you and reassess, look at where you are. And again, create the environment that you need, that's going to make you a better person. And sometimes that just means removing the things that antagonize who you are. It's not always about, doing the things that work best. Sometimes it's about accepting that we have to let go of certain things, and forging our path ahead. But so these are some of our events that we have coming up. I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Farron and her team that have been so graciously able to put this together. I keep saying it, I'll continue to allude to this. It is incredibly difficult to set up these events. So if you guys are in this room, the power of showing up, and if we're doing future events, referrals help greatly. If you have friends, family, brothers, sisters, it's easier when it comes from you rather than a stranger on the internet. So I feel so honored to be here today and share some of my thoughts with you on how to grow as a person, because we all have opportunities, and life is crazy, man. It is a crazy place. So we have to be willing to accept that there's always something that we can learn. And by being uncomfortable and getting your reps in, hopefully you're able to create the life that you yearn to have. I just wanted to end with Dr. Farron. Do you have anything that you'd like to add? I see you there in our chat. Was there anything you'd like to add before we end?
No, well, yes, I always have something to say. I just want to thank everybody for coming. I should have put a session at the end. I feel like I just want to give everyone a giant virtual hug, and say thank you all for being here. And, I'm so proud of all of our presenters. They are exactly what I wanted them to be today. And I just knew that they had such powerful messages. I can't wait to watch us grow. I do agree. This is just going to become amazing. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Anthony. I look forward to connecting with you more and following your events. So I wish you huge success in exactly the way you want it to be.
Likewise. With that being said, everyone, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for supporting this summit. It's been a real treat for me. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So I love you guys. I'll see you later. Bye.
Thank you, Tanya.